Now to a rise in gray wolf attacks that are alarming ranchers in Sierra County as they're losing livestock.
The Sierra County Sheriff just over the border in California says there's been a dramatic increase in gray wolf attacks this spring.
The number of gray wolves in California continues to grow, and ranchers say they're to blame for a number of attacks against livestock. Wolves are a protected species, and it's illegal to intentionally kill them unless someone's life is in danger.
It's been 100 years since these wolves were last here in the state, and they're returning to a different California than what was here 100 years ago. They're essentially trying to thrive in these landscapes that maybe they once knew but are now different and being used by humans in a different way. My background coming from Florida, I worked a really long time on a project that was focused on the endangered Florida panther. Coming here to California, it seemed way more complex with the gray wolf because I would say common ground with ranchers and the animal. The ranchers were just having this conflict, and they still are.
In about 2017, 2018, when the wolves first started coming in, we're like, I think these wolves are going to be a problem. It happened a whole lot faster than we expected. This we call our ranch Emsoft Livestock Company. We run about 150 ewes on our ranch. We also have about 12 cows, a dozen cows, but the sheep are our main thing. The wolves, they were beginning to teach the pups to kill cattle, and so they were finding a lot of calves, like newborn calves that were just bit on the back, the top of the back. Okay. When we saw that the wolves were coming into Sierra Valley and they were starting to kill a lot of cattle, we made the decision at that point to not take our cows out there. And in hindsight, that was a very wise decision because there's been over 90 kills, confirmed and probable kills in Sierra Valley.
It would be probably at the beginning of this summer, but it got really bad in the spring. The wolves worrying and attacking and consuming cattle. It's become a problem. When you lose a calf, that is your way of life, is to sell the calves every year. And when they're being murdered by these animals, it kind of makes it hard.
They're loading by size. We had our heifers who were calves this year. These truckloads are going to Grass Valley, Penn Valley. We just wanted to get out of the danger of the wolves. We have been so fortunate, and I almost hate to say this, I think we're the only ones among all of our friends who didn't get hit. We didn't lose anything. That's one reason, though, we're pulling out about 3 weeks early this year. We usually go out mid-November. Our neighbors right down the road got hit, but the wolves were in the area.
The Sarasota Ranch out of Beckworth had a wolf come in and kill a ewe about 50 yards right out here in this field, this corral. Had USDA trapper come out and verify that it was a wolf kill. Swabs were taken. We're putting fladry up. This is where the sheep will be locked up at night. Fladry is hot wire with ribbons on it, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife are putting it up. See if this works on keeping the animals protected, added protection the Fish and Wildlife wants. So it's a temporary possible stop for the wolf. After it's up a while, it loses its true effectiveness.
There's these two different spheres that are interacting. What are humans doing with their cattle, and what are wolves doing, and what's happening in like the wolf universe? So if deer populations are really low, well, we know that wolves are going to look for their prey somewhere. They're not just going to give up and die. And then where are the cattle on the landscape? Are they vulnerable? And so I think in Sierra Valley, it seems like there's a little bit of a collision of these two spheres, but we don't totally understand why it's been so bad there. And that's something I think that a lot of people are interested in answering to make sure it doesn't happen again, but we don't know yet.
The world has changed, California has changed, there's 40-some million people here. There's got to be some restraints put on these apex predators if they're dangerous to the public safety or to the economic benefit of the ranchers. They've got to be, some of them have to be removed. And that's just how I feel about it.
It's a major update after months of meetings between state officials, federal officials, local ranchers, and law enforcement.
The dramatic steps will have the effect of moving the entire AMSAO pack.
The impacted wolves included a breeding pair, a female and male. During the course of the operation, a juvenile wolf was mistaken for a breeding male, which was of similar color and size and was unintentionally lethally removed as well.
Personally, I'm glad they're gone, because my neighbor down here at the Madalena Ranch down here, they had several calves killed. They were up all night during the summer when the wolves were moving through this area, and one of the ranchers out in the valley lost over 50 head.
As a rancher, we're very relieved that this pack was finally dealt with. I feel like it was way too late, that it should have happened a lot sooner. The outcome would have been the same for the wolves, but it would have saved a lot of cattle and also probably improved relationships with and trust between CDFW and the ranchers. This is a huge relief, but it doesn't mean that the ranchers' problems are over.
I've been up during the night at all hours. The fact is, I parked the car right up here. Since Saturday, that's where I've been every night. 98% of livestock has left the valley. All the big cow herds are in Central California or elsewhere. Now you got the kids and their 4-H animals, pets, and that. So there'll be more kills probably on the smaller side now because the big herds have left. So it's Russian roulette. You can't be with them all the time. But this shows that they're going to come right into your backyard. They have no fear of people. We've talked with Fish and Game about harassing them. We still haven't got anything allowing us to harass them. So until that starts happening, we're going to end up just like we were in 25, and the wolves are going to be habituated. And once again, the state of California Department of Fish and Wildlife is behind in doing what needs to be done. We've met with them. They agree, but no, they got to plan this and they got to plan that. They're already behind the 8 ball. I mean, this wolf came right into here. Fish and Game had game wardens out here for several months, 24 hours, using telemetry and everything else. But by then it's too late, and they're already behind now. They shooting at them with rubber bullets, non-lethal, using drones. But by then they had the taste. They weren't afraid of stuff, and then they just started outsmarting us. These wolves here are right there ready to be the same type. And the state's saying, well, we got to review what we're doing, and we need to train the ranchers up on how to harass them. We've done it since April of 2025. And now we're waiting again to get okay, but we want it in writing so that we know what we can do, when we can do it, and they can't come back on us. They got some good people working for them. It's the leadership is way behind. About half of them need to be fired.
But there's this deep-seated feeling of wanting to eradicate predators, and then in the 1970s that really started to change. And there was legislation in the U.S. of the Endangered Species Act to try to save remaining carnivores. And at the same time, more people in the U.S. are moving towards cities and really having a different relationship with wildlife than people that live in rural areas that interact with wildlife more frequently. And so, there's these demographic changes, like changes in our structure in the country. And then in the 1990s, when they were introduced, that led to a big feeling among rural communities of this being something that was imposed on them. So wolves are being reintroduced. I don't want this. It's being done by the urban populations who want this, but they don't have to live with them. And you kind of see that play out in California too. Still that feeling of who has to live with wolves versus who's the one that wants the wolves to be there. The pack that is in Sierra Valley is called Bayam Sao, and Bayam Sao has killed a crazy amount of cattle. They've killed about 71 cows this year, which is about twice as many as all of the 1,000 wolves in the state of Montana in 2024.
Our concern is twofold. One, the genetics and being, raised by the Biosam, who were so habituated to cattle, that our concern is as they mature, if they're not captured and they do make it through the winter time, then the likelihood of them continuing to be habituated on cattle is pretty high. It's a complicated issue. The only way that we're going to solve this is a true management plan that gives clear guidelines to the ranchers, and you have individual identified wolves that have been shown to be habituated to cattle. There has to be a mechanism in which that animal is removed from the equation.
This is a healthy ecosystem, so we do have other top predators. There are black bears here, there are mountain lions. Those are probably the main two predators on cattle in this area. Every now and then there is predation pressure from them. The difference with those species are that in California you can get a depredation permit. So if you have one individual that's causing a lot of issues and you can prove that, you can get a permit and that animal can be lethally removed. The problem with the wolves were they are federally and state protected.
Sierra County has been hit the worst, Sierra and Plumas County, and it's become a public safety issue. And apex predators, mountain lions, bears, wolves, are changing their behaviors around humans. And this summer we had, just around the corner from Newman's Point there's a house where a pack of wolves killed, I can't remember if it was an elk or a deer, on a front porch and bloodied it, and there were little kids in the house, and it was 10 o'clock at night. If they'd opened the door, it could have been disastrous. So there's a public safety issue here because wolves have got used to eating cattle, so when the cattle leave, what are they going to eat?
Wolves are pretty predictable. They kill large mammals to eat them, right? And so we know that they're going to do that. We know that they're going to look for the most opportune ones. And, wolves are not the best hunters. Compared to the carnivore world, you have this animal that's trying to kill something that's 2-3 times its size with just its mouth. And they're doing it by chasing after them. They often get kicked in the face, and they die from that, or that's why they need to be in a pack.
These wolves will move anywhere. They're not necessarily staying on trails or roads. And they also are just, they're pretty sensitive also to the equipment. So one of the struggles or challenges that I had in the very beginning was camouflaging my camera trap equipment. Just the visual sight of some of my tripod or my camera box would kind of spook them a little bit. So I had to learn and adapt to try and hide and camouflage a lot of what I was doing.
I think natural resources are incredibly important. Without a nice a healthy ecosystem, we also couldn't have ranching, right? There is no rancher out here that wants to see their land decimated, because the idea is that they return in a future year with their cattle again, and it has to be healthy. On our property here, we value the natural ecosystems even more highly. That kind of takes priority here. I've had wildlife cameras on this property for about 15 years now.
And, you know, these families that own these ranches, you know, are big into conservatorship and into, you know, conserving this valley for not only the cattle, but the deer that live here, the bear, the mountain lions, the birds, eagles and hawks. I've heard a lot of people say, well, you need to build better fences. Build a fence so big that it keeps the wolves out of it. Well, the problem is that then affects all the other animals that, you know, utilize and rely on this Sierra Valley. That it affects deer migrations, antelope migration, elk migration. So, you know, the answer is not, you know, to put up a 20-foot tall high fence all the way around the valley, because that's going to have a humongous impact on our other wildlife that are here.
Coexistence goes both ways. It's not just ranchers coexisting with wolves. Wolves need to be able to coexist with ranchers too. No, I don't think it's realistic to say we need to just eliminate all the wolves, and I don't want to see them go extinct worldwide. Let's find a balance so that we can manage those wolves that are a problem while still staying financially sound, that we can keep doing what we do. We're feeding this country, we're feeding the world, and that's a very valuable thing.